welcome back to another episode of We Making It Woo. This is a weekly conversation of people making their dreams come true. If you didn't just notice, I changed the tagline. Let me know how you feel about it. As always, if you want to be a part of the conversation, please email me at katiesmiles.nyc. Katie, because it's my name, Smiles, because I didn't even really have to say it. .nyc, because that's where we at. Shout out to Mike Brunt and Kuhu Verma, who are the composer and vocalist on my opening soundtrack. We love you always. So what happened last night? I am recording on a Monday today. So what happened last night is I was recovering from said Pride. Everybody, this is my first Manhattan Pride, and I just have to say that it was almost not even almost. It was by far one of the best and most heartwarming experiences I've ever had. Coming from Texas, coming from Houston, Pride was not something that I was familiar with. And so that it was World Pride this year, first of all, but also what Pride stands for in general, though there are some corporate things. What I think about with Pride is also like all the gay people come out. Me and my girlfriend my girlfriend specifically, shout out to Emily, is always like, babe, where are these people the other 364 days or like the other 11 months in the year? They come out literally for June and they all go back into hiding. And it was so nice to see. I think we had some people from Munich, we had people from Italy, we had people from Fort Lauderdale, we had people from Tampa. I even saw my hometown Houston represented in the parade. So just super shout out to everybody everywhere. It was an amazing, amazing, amazing Pride Parade, and I'm super glad about it. What am I reading? I am reading The Bold World by Jodi Patterson. Shout out to Bryson Rose, who was my guest for episode 25, my last episode. It's a really, really good book. I have never loved and despised an author so much at one time. If you don't know, guys, I love memoirs. I think that's basically what I've read this year so far. And so to read another memoir, and it really pushed me like, I don't think I like her right now. She's getting on my nerves. And then to essentially go through some of the experiences that she describes in the book, as I'm reading the book, I'm like, okay, I see what she's saying now. Like, I understand where she's coming from. So shout out to you, Jodi. You did an amazing job. I think I'm like 20 to 50 pages out. So Jodi, you've done a remarkable job. And though we have some different experiences, your writing is captivating. So shout out to you. Are you reading anything?
Like right now?
Yes, right now.
Okay, I'm literally like, I was so looking at you and listening to you, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Yes, I'm actually, I have with me at all times Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, a classic.
Okay.
I haven't read it in a minute.
So you already read it?
I read it.
Going back.
You know what? I read it when I was young. I'm not. First of all, I read it when I was like a youngin', I should say.
Like 17, 18?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you were a teenager.
When I was a teenager. I read it again in my 20s.
Okay.
And it's like I read it a lot throughout, but
Okay.
I always look at it and I always like know that it's part of my repertoire. I've given it as a gift to many people, like, and I go through periods, but I think that this is the first time in a long time that I was intentional about reading it, intentional about following it, intentional about okay, like my mind is right for it, and it is it's crazy. Like, I'll tell you more, but it's crazy. It has been very not transformative. I think it's because now I understand, I am the master of my life and I can make the money that I make, and through my experience that now I'm like, all right, so how do I get stronger mentally, and how do I really push myself? And so I'm reading it and my eyes are open all the time, and I'm nodding all the time at the book, oh wow, oh damn, oh, you know what I'm saying? So I'm really happy. I'm really happy to be reading it. I have it on me at all times, and it's been amazing. So
okay.
That's
yes,
my book right now.
actually, it's so funny that you say that. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but I got shout out to Chani Nicholas. Honey, you know how important you are to this community, but honey, you are very important to me. I look at Chani Nicholas, if you aren't familiar. is a one. I think they identify she, her, but she is all about the stars, the planets, what's going on in the world, and so I bought her year projection.
Okay.
For a sign. So my rising is Sagittarius.
Okay.
And so she gave you an overview of what Sagittarius rising is going to look like for the rest of the year.
Okay, cool.
Or for the entirety of 2019. And so I was supposed to, or I am working through my childhood trauma as it relates to money.
Yeah, that is not cute.
Let me just say that this has been it's been a long, not a long year, but this definitely been a year of choices and awareness. I'll leave it at that.
I like that. That's
Choices
actually,
and
you know
awareness.
what? That's a very good way of putting it because that's how I feel. Like, I'm like, all right, like, I want to work through some shit this year.
Right.
That's it.
But it's so funny because we're halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
We're going into an eclipse season tomorrow. And also we're going to a new moon tomorrow.
Yes. No, today.
Oh, is it today?
Yeah, today's July 1st.
Yes, but I thought the new moon was like at like 2 something, like
Oh,
2
yeah,
something,
yeah,
like 2
yeah.
on the 2nd.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I came home last night after work, and I was crunching the numbers as I do, and I asked myself, like, Khadija, are you really comfortable with being broke? And I was like, I think so. I've noticed this year, and I will not go into detail, but I think it's so funny that you bring up this book. And I was just talking to myself last night, like, you know, honey, you're used to having little money, and you have worked from that place for a really long time. And are you making choices that are going to maintain that, or are you making choices that are going to like change that in terms of like the actual number that's in your bank account? And so I just think it's so funny that this is supposed to be the year that I'm supposed to address my childhood trauma, and we're halfway through.
There you go. No, but you know what? It takes time because people want it to be like timed. And I do understand that you have to have a thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to do something within a certain amount of time because I'm planning it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you also have, like, you're also human. Do you get what I'm saying? And like as you go through something and you undig certain things, then certain other things come out. And I think it's a practice of being able to get to the point where you're like, okay, like I see this and I just say, okay, like it's something that happened. I know it's going through it. I know its roots because the deeper you dig, the more you
see
get
where
out.
things are coming from.
Exactly, you know, and then just being able to be like, okay, like I acknowledge it. Like I acknowledge that it happened. I acknowledge that it's there. I acknowledge that it's part of me. But like I think most people just stay on it.
Yeah.
And I'm also one of those people. Like I stay on certain things. One day I realized that I think about the same things every day.
Yes.
Like
me too.
And I think we're all like that. Like the same thing. Like I'm like, geez, like there's so much more that I could be thinking about.
So many other things.
It's insane. It's insane.
So, all that to say, hi Chani and everybody else who is working through your horoscope and also just working through 2019. I wish you beautiful things, though those things may not look beautiful at that time. So I have a special guest today. This is my first. Do you identify as an illustrator or visual artist? Or a little bit of both?
I have no idea.
Okay. So if you checked out my story today on Instagram, I'll be sure to post some more. But my special guest today is Tatiana. Pronounce your last name for me.
Poblah.
Yes. So I met Tatiana about 6 or 7 months ago, this past Christmas. Emily and I were walking through the Union Square Market, and we stumbled upon Tatiana's booth. Tatiana's work is amazing. She had this one piece with a girl with bubble gum and pink hair. And if you know me personally, you know how I feel about a good pink hair. I've never had it, but honey,
oh my God, that's how
coming.
I feel.
I really feel it in my spirit. I need to color my hair. And when you see Tatiana's work, you will understand why. So I brought her on the episode partially because I have been, if you guys noticed, I've been talking to more artists. So we had Ray Benstock, who is a writer. We had Bryson, who is super in community activism. And now we got an illustrator. So, and then if you remember JB was a musician of sorts. So, we're going to go back a bit. Tatiana, what are you working on right now?
Okay. So I'm working on a project that I've been working on for a while. I think I told you last time. All right.
Yes.
And I'm going to announce it at the end of the month and start pushing it. And
OMG.
that's how I feel. And
Okay.
I just unveiled it to my mom and my
Wow.
siblings. Yes. And like, it's very emotional because it's not even like something huge, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But for me, it's a project that I had in mind for a very long time.
Okay.
And I went through like a period of like not doing it because I was like, I'm gonna do something else in order to like build myself as an artist and in order to build my name as an artist. And then like so it kind of like always put it to the side. And like I actually started it at first. I did it. I didn't like how it was.
Okay.
And my sister says I gave up very quickly on it. And I was just like, no, it's not what I want and everything. And she's like, you really gave up. Well, one day she told me that. She was like, you like gave up like the second it wasn't how you wanted. You know what I'm saying? She's like, you didn't even push through. And I was like,
Sister knows. Sister knows what's up.
I was so like annoyed at her because like I was talking to her and I was like bearing my soul. And then she was just like, no. She's like, nah, bro, no. She's like, you didn't do what you would usually do. Like, you just said no. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so I let it be for years. And so I decided this year, going into the year, that I was going to pick it up. And it's been me getting the skills that I needed to get in order to go towards it. And it's the same as what I'm doing right now, but it's like pushing myself a little bit more as an artist and also like as a designer. And so I'm very excited. Yeah. I'm working on it like a crazy. So I'm working on like the visuals. It's fantastic. Like I am not announcing it, but I'm saying it's coming very soon and I'm very excited and it's very beautiful and I'm very proud and I'm like, I don't know. I'm super happy to be doing it. Like, I feel very blessed to be doing it and to be like, all right. And I've been like, I don't know. Like, I'm just working on it every day. I'm working on it every day.
Literally, when did Tatiana and I see each other? Tatiana,
like
we saw each other literally, I think we saw each other about a month ago.
Yes.
About a month ago, because she's at Union Square every Sunday. And I was like, so Tatiana, are you working on anything new? And you were like, yes, but I can't say, but it's good and it's coming. And I'm like, she's still not going to announce this. So you're not announcing this to the end of July.
Well, you know what? Because first of all, I had to give myself a date because I was like, if I continue working on it, I'm going to work on it forever and I'm not going to put it out. So I said July, I'm doing Curl Fest. July 27th, I think it is. It's a Saturday. And which I can finally say because like I just sent my payment. So like I'm doing Curl Fest.
Amazing.
If you're out there, it's in Randall Island this year.
Randall Island. Where is that? I thought it was gonna be Prospect Park.
It's supposed to be, but I think it got so big last year that they
Prospect
had to.
Park was just too. It wasn't. It can't hold it.
That's it.
That's
so
fair.
which I'm like, you know what? Good for you.
Hashtag growth.
That's what I'm saying.
Hashtag growth. I'm here
like,
for it. Bounty and abundance.
That's
honey.
what I said. I was like, I was proud. You know what I'm saying? I was like, what? Like, so I wasn't even mad. I just said, all right. And it's my first year doing it. And I was just like, all right, you know, like, if I have this, then I'm going to have like something, like I'm going to have a prelude to it there too, you know? So at Curl Fest, I'm so excited. Well, that's actually something that I'm really working on right now. I could say if it's not like the other project, then it would be Curl Fest, making sure that I have like a lot of products that are very, like
curly girl friendly?
Curly girl pride friendly.
Curly girl pride friendly.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, meaning just like not like pride, not like gay pride only, but just saying like so that we can be very proud of what we like of having curly hair. Okay. And so like that's gonna be like something that I'm working on because you know I have like a lot of Black girls in general in my art.
Of course.
So which I always, but the thing is this, which I was very surprised. Okay, when I started, at one point my brother. Because I started first, I've been drawing for a long time. All right.
Yes, I'm glad that you're gonna take us back a bit.
Yeah,
go for it.
I'm gonna take us back. So I've been drawing for a very long time. Actually, I've been drawing since like I was a kid. But in high school, I was like, I know I'm gonna go in the arts. I know I'm gonna go in arts and design. And I have a wonderful mom. She wasn't like, you know, you should. She was just like, go into it like 100%. She's like, this is what you have the skill in, so this is what
Right.
you should do. Like, she's like, don't even
Right.
try to do it. Like, she's don't go into science. Like, she's never been like one of those people who's like, you should be a doctor. She's like, no. She's like, she's like,
Shout out to
you,
your
you know what I'm saying?
mom.
You have what capacity for it. Like, I cannot see you. You will be miserable, my child. Like, you cannot concentrate on anything else but art. And so, like, she kept pushing me into the arts, and I went through design. Like, I have my associates in fashion. I have my bachelor's in landscape architecture and my master's in landscape architecture.
How
which
did
is
landscape architecture relate to design?
So, okay.
There's color there,
So
and there's bound. Yeah.
There's color. There's color, but it also shows you that you should do whatever it is that you want to do, because at one point I said from the time that I was a child. Imagine how my mom is like so intense. So I said to her, I was like, I'm going to be an architect and I'm going to do engineering. Like, that was my thing. I was like, even though I know how to draw, like, I want to go into architecture because I think that's like, I have a very analytical mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I like art. But to me, I think that art is too open, and I need.
You just wanted to focus on
exactly.
one thing.
So I was like,
and architecture pays well.
It pays super well, and I was like, okay, and it's very creative.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, so I did a high school magnet program in it, and it was awesome and like great experience. I always say, if you have a kid that's good at something and there's a possibility of doing magnet programs, to send them in that, even if it's just to see if that's going to be what they're going to go into.
Right.
Because with my mind, like, I'm one of those people who like needs, like some people can do a million things and be good. Me, I need to stay on one thing. Like, I'm not like, I can't do it. Like, I know a lot of times, like, there's like this whole thing of like women are like, first of all, I hate stereotypes like that, but it's like they'll say like
women are great multitaskers.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't. I'm like, I go to school, I can't work. I'm working, and it's just
Can't
me.
go to school. You got to focus
exactly.
on one thing at a time.
I have to focus, but it doesn't mean that I can't do multiple things in the day. It just means that when I'm on
You're
one task,
focused.
I have to be focused. You know, and to me, it's my own way also to be able to process everything that I'm going through.
Yeah.
Because I like to be able to say, okay, I understand something, and I can move on. And like, I know like a lot of people like to see things on the surface, and like have a general knowledge. But me, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about so many things. It's insane how many things I don't care about. Oh, like, I don't care. You're not going to bring me anything. You're not going to make me more creative. You're not going to bring me money. You're not like, I don't care. Like, I'm like, I don't know
or
what's
you
happening.
do care. You just have a very specific care.
Exactly.
So everything else falls by the wayside.
Everything else, I'm like, sometimes people will be like, do you know about like this person like in history or whatever? Like, I'm like, unless it's a person that was like inspiring to me, like, I don't care. Like, I just don't care. It could be like, do you know who the general of this was? I'm like, you know how long ago that was? I don't care. Like,
is it relevant?
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? But on the contrary, like, if you tell me about like someone like, I don't know, like Antonio Lopez, who was a great fashion illustrator, I'm like, I actively care. Like, his work, I'm like,
his
care.
Work changed
Exactly. And it really did. Exactly. You
Yeah.
know? So there's that. And so like when I wanted to do architecture and engineering, going back to my mom, she pushed me into that. She pushed me into that into my first year of university.
Yeah.
And I actually did my first 2 years of university in Florida.
Okay.
Which is where I grew up. And then but like, I was really bad at it. I was just bad at it. Like, I was not, I didn't like it. Engineering, first of all, my first semester, I was like, I think I'm not an engineer. I was like, you know what? Like, it's not for me. I thought I was analytical, but I don't want to do science and math for like 4 years. So I was like, I'm out. And then, you know what I'm saying? I was like, you know what? You got to know thyself. That's like my thing.
Into thine own self be true.
Exactly. So I was like, sorry, parents, but I'm not doing that. And then I went into architecture. And at the end, I always remember this because it was a shock. And it like changed a lot of the course of my life. But I'm stubborn. So it's still, I'm not going to say I'm stubborn. At the time, I was stubborn because I'm not putting labels on myself like that. At the time, I was stubborn. And so I was just like, okay. So at the end of the year, the dean took the two of us, and one of them was the worst student and me.
Wow.
And was like, I don't think that you you should stay in architecture. And I was like, you don't know me. And then he actually told me, I think you should go in more the visual arts or go into interior design. And I was like, you don't rule me.
Wow.
Like, I was like, I don't know you. I stayed one more yeah.
Hold on, I just want to repeat that real quick. So the dean
Yes.
took the worst
The
student,
worst student and me. And I was looking
so
at the
I'm
worst
assuming that you're like one of the best students.
I was one of the top students in the program. So I was like, what is going on? Like, what's happening? You know
Do
what I'm
you
saying?
remember what was okay? So yeah, do you remember what was going through your mind at the time, aside from the fact that you don't rule me?
I do, because the last project we had to do that year was a project of doing like I don't remember. It was like reconstructing a part of the school. All right.
Wow. Okay.
And so like we had to create a maquette and the whole nine. And I remember my maquette was like completely interior design. Like it was blue. It was like it was all public art looking. It was like a piece of sculpture. And then they were all like, this isn't credible, but this is intense. You know what I'm saying?
Like, this isn't what we're
this
looking
isn't
for.
what we're looking for at all. And I've always kind of gone like, even in landscape, because eventually I went back to landscape because I was like, I have 2 years of architecture. Like, what am I going to do going somewhere else? And then I was like, and plus on top of that, I want the title. Oh, the title. The title, which now I gave my parents my diplomas. Like, take your freaking diplomas. Like, why you? But I'm like, I can't blame them for anything.
No,
you know, like
because at this moment, because if we're going backwards, you really wanted the title.
I was exactly.
Okay.
You know, so it's like the 2 years, and then when they told me that, I was like, okay, but I still stuck with it, and then I left. And I went to Canada because I was like, I feel like I need to figure out my own life. And I'm originally from Canada.
Right.
So I was like, I need to go back and see what's going on, you know, like with myself. And then I went back to Canada. I did 1 year associates in fashion design because I was like, I need to do something that's completely different.
Right.
Then I took a sabbatical to my parents' sadness. My mom was like, just be a teacher. Just do anything. I don't care. I'm like, wow, you know?
Well, because, I mean, rent's doing the first.
Well, that's
Rent
it. Exactly.
It
is. And I was just taking a bunch of menial jobs. But the thing is that throughout the whole time, I was still drawing. I was still meeting a lot of people through my drawings. I was working freelance. I was working like freelance for magazines. I was getting like a lot of work, but it was like freelance life, you know? And she was just like, you can't sustain yourself like that. It's
difficult to sustain yourself.
It is.
With freelance, which we will talk about.
Exactly. And then she was just like, you're young, you can do it. Like, go back to university, get your degree at least, and then you can say, okay, whatever I do, like, is what I do. But I wasn't ready. And then when I went back to university, I was just like, I was lazy with the process, and I still didn't trust myself enough to say, I really want to do art, and I want to push myself in
Well, then,
because
like at this point, how could you have trusted yourself?
I didn't.
You had someone tell you that like you're great, just not in the thing that you've chosen. And then so there's that part, and then you have this other brain of like, but I really, 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 really want this title. Like. And this is something that I'm learning at this moment too. So many people that I'm around are always like, trust your instincts, trust your like gut reaction. But I want to speak from my personal experience. A lot of my gut reactions have been turned down.
Yeah, a lot.
And so there's a practice of learning to trust your gut instincts, but then there's also an understanding that like you may be around a group of people, or your own body may reject your gut instinct because of, you know, external stuff, internal stuff. But I just want to say that in of itself is trusting yourself is a practice. It does not happen with one choice.
No, it is. And it is a practice of actually trusting yourself, understanding that you trusted yourself, and yourself being right for whatever it is that you're doing.
Right.
And then being like, okay, this was right. So then the next time that you come up with something, you can be like, well, last time I trusted myself and it went well. Happened. Exactly.
Right.
And even if it goes bad, because the thing is that to say good or bad, you know what I'm saying?
It's relative.
It is relative. Because like
sometimes it's supposed to be bad.
Exactly. You know? And like the whole thing is, if we just keep doing things that we feel are safe, like, we're not going to grow. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And sometimes too, and I think that this is the part that I'm like struggling with too. sometimes with things being bad, there are certain lessons that you pick up on that if things were always good, you'd never pick up
Yeah.
on that lesson.
Yeah.
And so I think I think it's just what is her name? Felicia Rashad had this great interview about her kids, and the interviewer was like, what's something that you really want your kids to have? And she said it's an awareness.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think I'm striving for too. And I think with artistry, any artist of any medium, that's what we're all striving to. If I can be more aware, I can make more aware choices, not necessarily better or worse choices.
But like more educated choices.
Yes. Educating yourself on yourself.
It is.
Me 101.
It is. And it's fantastic, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I'm not going to say like I'm enlightened or anything like that, but I've always been very self-aware. Like I'm very like
sensitive.
I'm extremely sensitive. Like that for sure. Like I've actually, in order to protect my inner self, I've had to like get tough on the outside, just because I'm like living in a world, and like I basically always had like my whole heart, like not even on my sleeve, like just everywhere. I'd be like,
just
you know what I'm saying? I'd be
Just
like, I'm sad, I'm mad, you know what I'm saying? So like now I'm like, no, like it's an emotion, like you can control that,
Right.
So, but at the same time, so I've always known, and I always know when I make good the choices that I make, you know what I'm saying? And so when I went to school, I was like, this is not the choice for me. I was like that after the first semester. This is not the choice for me. I was like, it's hard. It's not, I'm not enjoying it. I don't like the people. I don't like the school. I don't like the program. But I stayed with it for 4 years. I was serious. I was like, and even because I ended up staying with it for 4 years, because in the end, it's like a professional program where you're supposed to work at the end as a landscape architect, nothing else. Like you're, you just go into a job like as a landscape architect, no apprenticeship, nothing. So I was like, you know what? I started it. I might as well do the 4 years. I'm not gonna like switch into another program. It was the hardest thing of my life. Like to this day, I don't have a good experience, and I know I'm not a good landscape architect. I see some projects that people make, and I'm like, they're awesome. Me, I would not be able to do that. But that being said, I realize I'm not a good landscape architect in the classical sense. Because if you give me a public art project, I can make sure that it fits well within the landscape, that, like you're looking at certain things that landscape architects wouldn't look at because they're so focused on like the landscape, and they're so focused on precedence, while I'm focused on like making sure that the bridge of like landscape architecture and art would be like brought together. You know what I'm saying? And so now I'm able to like look back. One day I woke up after like I stopped practicing, and I was like, forget this. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I studied this. Like, I have my master's in this. Like, I know what I am doing. Like, I'm not gonna let like somebody else tell me what I can and cannot do. And it changed everything. But I had to go into art. I had to like push my art.
You had to come from your own perspective.
I had to come from my own perspective in order to be able to say, okay, like I trust myself. I trust my work. And that's why I told you, I don't know if I'm an illustrator per se, because I know where I want to go. And I also know like my skill level. So I know like, I am an illustrator. Classically, I am an illustrator. Like, and through experience, I am an illustrator. But also like I can do fabric. I can work on like landscapes, I can work on exteriors. So it's, to me,
visual artist.
Exactly. So technically it would be more a visual artist.
But we're also trying to make sure we catch all of the things.
Well, that's
we're trying to get all of the jobs.
Exactly. Yes. But it's also like the things that I know, the skills that I have in, and I know like where I want to push myself. So the day that I stopped calling myself a landscape architect, it was the most like freeing day of my life. I was like, you know what? I'm not a landscape architect. Like, I don't care. Like, I just don't care. Like,
and also just like the value of like labeling yourself.
And
or not labeling yourself, but feeling like you just, how do you create space for yourself? Even with how you label yourself, or how you identify yourself. You
know what? And that was like intense. It was like, for years I struggled with it. I was like, I am a landscape architect, but I'm also in art, but I'm not officially an artist, because it's not like people necessarily like validation, of course, of people.
Right.
And I'm like, because it's not like people know me as an artist. They know me more in landscape architecture.
Right.
I didn't go to art school, so I was always like, oh, but I didn't go to art school. Like all these like
Right.
things that I put in myself that we all put in ourselves, you know,
Right.
like these limitations as well as like these things that you think you're supposed to do.
Right.
And it was just too much. It was just like my sister, every year we would have a conversation about this. I was like, I'm a landscape architect, but I know where I want to go and I know the things that I want to do, and they're all in art and they're all in design and they're all like all the people that I respect in the field are not necessarily landscape architects. And she was just like, well, you could be both. And I was like, but I don't feel like I'm both. And so right now I'm neither, you know?
Right.
And one day I was like, no. I was like, I don't feel like a landscape architect. I'm not a landscape architect. But like when I decided to be like only 2 years ago, I said I'm an artist for the first time.
Yeah.
And like I felt like, oh my God, like my whole life changed by just giving myself that permission and not that permission to give myself that, you know what I'm saying? Like just being like, you know what? Like to thyself be true. And it is one, it's freaking YOLO. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's just, I was just like, what am I waiting for? Like, I'm waiting for somebody else to tell me.
Right.
I'm waiting to be 80. I don't know what I was waiting for.
No.
I was like, I don't know what I'm waiting for anymore. Like, I was like, obviously, before buying my art, I'm an artist. Come on.
Which is crazy because we also bought her art too.
Yes.
Emily and I.
But you know, it's funny because, like, people buy my art all the time, and now I'm used to it. But at the beginning, I was like, really? Like, really? I always wanted to know like what they were gonna do with it, and like I was not shy. Like if somebody was like not who I thought was my typical client, I would be like, "Why are you getting this? Is this for someone else? Why do you like it?"
What did they say?
They just were like, "I like it." And I was like, yeah, but why? Like, I really wanted to know. I wanted to be like, what's happening? Because I had a clear vision of who I thought was going to love my work. I thought it was going to be black girls. I was like, it's that simple. It's going to be black girls. But then it wasn't. It was everyone. Like, I get love from everyone. There's some people that as soon as I see, I'm like, no, I know you're not going to like my work. And it's fine. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I'm
knowing
not
your
trying
audience.
That's it. And that's it. And I move on. But like at the beginning, I didn't understand that it was the person and not just the color. So I came at it like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, and then it wasn't. And then I was just like, whoa, because I was just, I don't know. I was just like, whoa, like, and then, but once I understood that, like, it's not the person, it's a person that purchases it. So
Right. And I think that's true of any art form. Like, I think every artist has an intention and an audience that they're striving to reach. But what is, I think, so beautiful about music, about writing, about dance, about art in all mediums is that I think some of the most influential art has been art that has had the ability to speak to a bunch of different experiences. It's almost like you're tapping into this through line of like, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be compassionate? What does it mean to feel pain? So yeah, I think your work reaches
but I'm
so
telling
many
you
people.
now I'm like, oh, I get it. But at the time I was
could
like,
totally see that because you're thinking about you. You're also coming into this like
a newbie.
newly self-affirmed, like I'm coming.
That's it. So it made a difference.
But I definitely want to talk about too transitioning from architecture, which is a very stable job. It's a 9 to 5,
basically. Yeah.
So what was that transition like going from, first of all, what was that transition like going from the full-time to the freelance? And then now, are you still a freelancer? And
No, I haven't been a freelancer in 2 years.
So, yeah, talk to me about the transitions from full-time to freelancer to what are you doing now and how does that work?
Well, so I was full-time for a few years. So basically, I practiced for about 8 years. Okay. And I was a full-time like worker going to work 9 to 5 for 1 year. Then I had a very fluid schedule for like 3 years, meaning that I was a consultant. And the company that I was working for, I was working 9 to 5, but the company that I was working for was in another province. It was in Ontario, and I was in Quebec. And so I would just go in and like once or twice I think it was once a month, if I'm not mistaken, and just stay there for a week, like really be in person and be able to like go through the whole process. And but the thing is, I've never practiced landscape architecture as like somebody else. Like I never sat at an office doing drafting work for like hours like a lot of my peers. So the first year I did that. The 3 years after that, when I was a consultant, I was a consultant in sales. So I would actually have clients in Montreal who, well, in the Quebec area, who were French speaking clients. And I was like the representative for the people that were in Ontario. So I was there to really meet them and to basically like speak to them about the project, sell a lot of the things that they were doing, because they were a major construction company. And like, so it was mostly that. And then I would draw, like if it had to do, like if the person was interested in the project. So then I would go and actually draft the project, not the full project, but like the proposals. And so that was very interesting because it showed me that I really love, I've always known I love sales because my father is actually like, has been a salesman for as long as I know. Like my parents have been entrepreneurs basically their whole lives.
Amazing.
So, like I always knew like I liked that. Like I always knew I was going to eventually have my own business. And so that's what happened. After 3 years, the company was bought and my thing was eliminated, which I think it should be. Now I'm looking back because at the time I was like, but now I was like, no, I was not that needed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like the projects were outside of Quebec and I was there to like represent them, but it wasn't like I brought in like trillions of dollars, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So now I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that I be the first person to go. And so when that happened, after like the moment of depression,
yes,
and the only reason I had a moment of depression, actually, which is something I rarely talk about, but I do talk about it once in a while because now I'm more open to it, but before I wasn't, is when I had the consultant job, I opened a boutique. And yeah, and it was the most adorable boutique, and it was completely like all my stuff was in the boutique. So it was just me. It was actually an atelier boutique, so it was me creating a lot of the stuff in the boutique and also like selling it in the front of the boutique.
Okay.
And it was like tiny, and it was just like me representing myself as my first attempt to be like, okay, I'm an artist,
right,
and like this is the type of things that I do, you know,
right.
Even though at the time I wasn't calling myself an artist, but I was still like putting it out there.
And like walking into that.
Exactly. And so that's when I really started to be like doing like the girls mostly, and also like getting my color palette, understanding like, okay, because I had a background in design, so I was like, okay, this is, you know, how you create a collection, this is how you create something from scratch, this is how you make the space be yours. And so it was like I was always walking the line of the boutique and of doing the consultation. And the boutique it was not profitable. And so I had to close it. But I took a minute to close it because I was still kind of like, I want the boutique to work, but I didn't know how to make it work. I wasn't learning how to make it work. I was like, I want the boutique to work. I basically like, if you build it, it will come type of thing.
Right.
And it's not, that's what I learned now from that experience, that it's not what happens. And so when I lost the job, or when I was fired from the job, then I actually still had the boutique, and I had to be like, shit, because a lot of the times, like, since it wasn't profitable, it was just paying enough. Like, it's like, it's not like it's paying me. And at the time I wasn't like, well, how do I make it work? I was like completely lost. Completely lost. And so I basically was like, all right, what do I do? Instead of moving and being active, I went into depression. I was just like,
yeah, which is actually what happened with Jodi Patterson after, which this is not the same, but the way that she described it is, I think it's kind of similar. Her dad passed away in the book. Okay. Spoiler alert.
I know,
her
right?
dad passed away. But she did, when I remember reading this section of the book, and I was like, she needs to help herself. She needs to like talk to somebody. People are trying to help her and she's not even trying to help herself. But there are these moments that really, really, really like take you down, and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I'm ready to sit down
Yeah,
now.
yeah. And that was one of those moments for me. And I had a like but I think it was also when that happened, it's exactly that. It's like I needed to talk to someone, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But instead, what I did is at the time I wasn't in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and I seeked out my comfort in a relationship.
Right.
And I entered a relationship at that exact moment, like not even like 3 months after like this had happened. And I think it
Right.
was like basically I think it was like 1 month to tell you. I think it was like the same day. I think
Right.
it was super, super close. And um basically when I entered that relationship, like it changed a lot in my life. Like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say it was a bad relationship,
Right.
okay? Because that would be saying that I was powerless in the relationship.
Right.
It's just that what happened at the time, I was turning 30. So
Mm-hmm.
everything happened at the same time. Me having losing the job, me having to close the boutique. I waited six more months. If not, yeah, about 6 more months to close the boutique completely, and then me entering that relationship all
Mm-hmm.
happened at the same time, and it was all things that were extremely important at that time. So the losing the job thing, it wasn't like the end of the world,
Mm-hmm.
but the boutique thing was the end of the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting into this relationship. So I got into a relationship with an older man,
Mm-hmm.
okay, who it doesn't matter. But like from the start, he told me I already have a kid who wasn't a child, but I already
Mm-hmm.
have a kid and I've already been married and I don't want to get married again and I don't want children.
Well, he was very clear
He
about his
was
boundaries.
he was clear, so clear. Like, can I tell you, like, so clear about his boundaries, okay? And I was like, well, we can't date.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then he was like, okay, like, let's just keep going out. And me, in that
Um,
moment of knowing and seeing that this is what the person wanted, I
right.
was still like,
Let's try it.
let's try it. And I remember right before we moved in together, I was like, I can't move in with you because I feel like we're going to be together for a while. And you said specifically
That you
you
didn't want to
don't
get
want
married.
children and you don't want to get married.
And you want children and you want to get married.
Exactly. And the thing is that the culture in Quebec is very specific.
Mm-hmm.
It's historical, but at the end of the day, a lot of people don't have kids and a lot of people don't get married.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's like very like it's common. Most people live common law, and
Right.
and sometimes even if they do have children, they're still common law. They just don't get married.
Hmm.
And like so he was one of those people. And I
Mhm.
was just like, but I'm not one of those people. I don't that's not my culture. Like that's not my background. That's not what I believe
Right.
in and that's not, and I was still like
That's also not what I desire.
and that's not what I desire. So I remember very specifically when we got together and I was like, I'm gonna like he was like, just move in with me. Like I have a house, I have everything. You don't have to worry about anything. And I was like, that sounds so good.
It does.
I was like that sounds
It
so
does.
nice. That sounds so nice. And so I moved in with him and I remember telling him I don't and he was like he's like, if I'm asking you to move in with you, it's because I want to go further with you.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, but
Going further for you looks different than it did for him. Right.
okay.
Right.
And I always tell people that. And I always tell people now, like also, not even now, at one point during the relationship, I was like, people tell you what they feel or they tell you what they want. And then you're just like, I'm not going to listen because you want to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. You're
And
thinking about like the end goal that you see.
exactly.
And
you know
maybe
what I'm saying?
dismissing the actual
You're-
thing that they're saying.
But
that
they're saying
may be antithetical or
Exactly.
like against what you're talking about.
Exactly. And
Right.
so and then we were together for almost 7 years. We were together 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a good time. Like it was just personally between like not being able to and feeling like I wasn't able to express myself, and then like being in a relationship where I was like every year everybody's like, are you getting married? Like you guys are together? Like what's happening? Seeing all like so many people that like didn't have a boyfriend like get married, and it wasn't even like I care about marriage. That's what's worse. I don't care about marriage. Like marriage is the end of life.
Mm-hmm.
It was just at that time I was putting so much of my energy on like the whole marriage baby thing. I'm like 30, I have to be married and have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like that whole weirdness of it
Mm-hmm.
that like I wasn't seeing anything else. I was getting satisfaction from nothing else. I was like miserable. It was a weird time. And then he was already in construction in, and he was like, let's start a company together because you're a landscape architect. And we did.
Right.
And the company was amazing. Like
Amazing.
it was landscape services. It was like, so many things, but it was still not what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I was just like, this is insane. You know what I'm saying? And then like, because we were in a relationship together, we did the payment structure in a way, yeah, basically the salary structure in a way where I was like, he was like, well, it's for the household. And then I was like, yeah, you're right, whatever. And so I was barely getting paid, but I was like, but I have the
Wow.
freedom to do whatever I want. But at the same time, like it was like the most,
It's not what you wanted.
it was the weirdest, messiest thing. And my parents were like, what the hell? And my mom was like, my sister was like, oh, no. She's like, it was just very weird. It was just very weird situation. And then at one point, I just felt like, I remember very specifically, I went to get my master's. Okay. I went to get my master's in 2014 or 2013. And then I went in landscape, of course.
Of course.
And again, because you know what? They were like, oh, if you have your bachelor's, you can get your master's now, and it takes 1 year. And I was like, that's cool. I was like, that's nice. So dumb. So dumb. Like, I can't. I was like, oh my God. At the end of the master's, I remember specifically my mom. So I went to Haiti for the first time as an adult, which is where my mom is from.
Amazing.
For 3 months, I took a sabbatical. That was my graduation gift. And it changed me completely. Completely. It was the first time that I was in my mom's country, that I was where my great grandparents and my grandparents had walked, like when they were kids. I was on, like, I saw where she grew up. I saw everything. And it opened my eyes to like more than what I was feeling, because I was always feeling something. And it was often not positive, you know? And so when that happened, I went to Haiti. I took a trip, and one day I did like a very deep prayer, because I pray a lot. But this one day I was like, I need my ancestors to come inside and like awaken whatever is inside of me and give me that power, because I feel like I'm drowning and I feel like I have no direction, and I feel like my life is over, and I feel like all these things that I don't want to feel, and I've given all my power to everyone and everything but myself. And so I remember sitting there and I was like, I'm going to pray for the next 3 days. And at the end of this prayer, I want to be able to really see. And my mom was like, you're going to have to really be open, because whatever it is that you hear, you're going to have to follow. Exactly.
Right.
And I was like, oh, girl. Like, you're always about business.
Yeah.
But she was right. She was like, you are asking like the deepest connection of the universe to you, and you're not preparing yourself for it. She's like, you're going to have to follow it, whatever it is. She's like, but she was more like, I hope it's about like not being with this man, like all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like,
she's like, honey, I done already talked to the ancestors. I'm putting them on line too. I done already whispered to them. You just go ahead and get them on in. You be ready, because I already told them what you need to do. You just get them. You just call them on in, because I've been talking to them already.
For real.
We about to do a 1-2 hit a quitter tag team.
You know what I'm saying? That girl was ready for me. She was like,
she's like, girl, you asking, honey, because I've been talking.
She was so ready. She was like, ooh, let me show you what to do.
Girl, she already been praying too.
She asked. She not only did she ask, I think that's why she brought me on that trip, because she was too ready for it. She was like, yo, honey, like, it's time. She's like,
I've been brewing. I'm over this. I don't know if you over it, but I don't really care where you at. I'm over it. I know that. She
was over it. She was over it. She was so like, she didn't even pretend. She was like, you need to leave. You need to stop. And I was like, you need to get on my business. And she's like, I can't talk to you about this, but I will talk to you about this. And she wasn't joking.
Yeah.
And my 3-day prayer thing, like one night I had 2 dreams that were important to me when I was in Haiti. The first dream was actually not a dream. It was a dream, because I woke up feeling like my body was no longer my body. Like something came out of me, a breath. And I woke up and I told my mom, there's been a death in the family. I don't know why that was the first thing that happened to me, but my father has been sick for a few years, and I thought it was him. So I was panicked. And my mom was like, I got to call your dad because you're too intense. And she called my dad, and it was my grandmother, actually, his mother.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's for me. I know that's for me being so open to everything, you know?
Right.
So I was like, okay. So I was like, all right, like that's like when I was starting to feel more like myself, like I'm within myself. And then the second time, it was basically my dream was because I specifically asked about my relationship, and I saw in the dream that I was not with this man and that I was doing my art.
Wow.
And so I was like, I got to get out of that situation
Right.
in order to be myself, you know?
Right.
And it's weird because the thing is that, like, in the Haitian, my mom is from Haiti, my father is from Benin. So in our culture, there's a history of voodooism,
Right.
but there's also a history of being extremely connected to the land and the culture and the ancestry. And so, like, I haven't, when we were kids, my parents were always forcing us, you know, libations and saying, like, you know, you have to always, when you pray to your grandmother, make sure that you stay connected to that, you know? And I've always been like, yeah, okay, doing it automatically. But this was the first time where I, as an adult,
actively
exactly
looked for it.
I looked for it, and
Craved it.
that's it. And I also felt like because I was in the land where my grandparents were, and I knew their history and their stories of being entrepreneurs and like being pushing forward, that I had that courage where I was like, it runs through my blood.
Yeah.
Like it's there. Like I have to go in and get it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that made a huge difference for me. And that was the start of me finding myself again. And so after I went back to Canada, I had finished my master's. I finished everything. One day I cried like the whole day. I was on a boat. I was on a yacht with friends, and we were like, hey, champagne, hey, hey. And I went into the bathroom and I cried. And every time they would talk to me, I was crying. I cried. I was like, I am not happy. I was just like, I'm not happy. I need to get out of this. And then I started meditating.
Right.
I started practicing meditation, which changed my life.
Yeah.
I started to be like, I have to like take control of my life. I started to take control of my mind because I was very emotional until then all the time. And then I started to be like, I want to go full time, but I had to prepare myself. So I was like, I had the business. It was with somebody else. I was like, you can take the business. I just want one contract to sustain me. And then that was it. I took that contract. I removed everything that was extra. I was like, no more credit cards, no more going out, no more anything. I need to move in with my parents, which was sad to me. But my father was like, you needs to come home. He's like, you
That's
just
so sweet,
you know
that they welcomed you home.
Yeah, they were just like, I don't care what you do, you need to leave. And I took the time to cry and to be like, why did you mess up so bad? And to be gentle to myself. And then I was like, and now I'm ready to do art. And then that's it. So the first year I had the contract. And then after the first year, I was like, I need to be able to sustain myself on this. And now it's been 2 years since I'm hustling and I'm pushing. And I'm just like at the beginning of my plan. But I'm very, 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 very pleased. And I'm very, very, very pleased.
Yes, yes. Which I am pleased too.
Yes.
So many things were covered. I usually ask way more questions, but Tatiana basically covered a lot of the things. We may have to get you back because we still didn't talk about like the nuts and bolts of like, what are some things that that will be my last question.
Okay.
So going from a freelancer to what do you do now?
So I do art full time.
So, but you don't call it freelancing because...
No, because I do art like, that's my job. That's my job. That's my profession. Like, I don't freelance. Like, I don't work for other people.
Oh.
At all.
So
Like,
your income is based on what you create.
Exactly.
And it is enough to sustain you.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why you saw me and my stuff at the holiday market last year. Because I was like, I want to be able to not have to do commercial work. And so like I am open to commercial work, but it depends on the project. Like now I really have to be like, you have to be everything that I stand for. Like, you know what I'm saying? Which is amazing because at first it wasn't.
Right.
And I've turned down a lot of work, which I was like, like,
you can turn down work.
I was very pleased, but it's just been where I decided, okay, I want to live off my work. And I have to say, there's been one thing that's been a big change, a major change, is that I got married.
Right.
I met my husband, like maybe I met my husband while I was breaking up, which I always tell him is so funny. He's like, I'm like, because I was like cautious and I was like, I don't think we should go out. And
Right.
my mom was like, you prayed for this. Like, you actually prayed for
You
something.
manifested this.
Exactly. And so she's like, you have to like follow your intuition and you have to follow like the person. She's
Right.
like, you don't need 20 years to know if this person is
Right.
good, you know?
Because not everybody takes. You could be with somebody
Exactly.
20 years and they could be the worst.
Well, I was with someone for almost 7 years, and in the end, we didn't get married. And so I had told him, like, when we met, the day we met, I think we were separated just every time. Like, we were separated, especially since I still go back and forth between Canada and here. We've been separated, but like, we met, and then I was just like, I think this is the person. Like, I'm going to build my life with, you know what I'm saying? And so it helps that he's also an artist, because when I met him, he was like on his stuff and he was like, I'm selling, like I'm doing this. And so together we were able to be like, okay, like I'm extremely like business minded. I'm extremely like, we got to do certain things. And he's extreme with his experience, as well as like the fact that he grounds me and he pushes me. He encourages me and pushes me to like push myself more. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I've grown so rapidly with him. Like being in this relationship, but also being in this space and also being in myself has helped me grow so much.
You were ready for it.
I was ready for it, you know what I'm saying? And so like every year I'm able to grow more and more. And like I've grown my online sales. I've grown like my in-person sales. I did the market last year for the first time, because I was like, I want to be able to push myself out there, you know? And so like that's what we're doing. Like we're just pushing. But like I don't have a day off. I will say that. And being like that, I don't take commercial work. Like there's times if my bank account is lower, I'm like, well, that's your fault. And so I have to like be out there grinding. I have to be in the heat sometimes, in the cold sometimes, but I love it. Like
it's your work.
It's my